Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil Amuti.
And don't you just love how I brought in our studio audience today? Those are my friends and family, y'all. They're here to clap it up and celebrate this great girlfriend magic that is happening here on the show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy. Here we go. Hey, Tiffany. Hey, are you ready to rock steady? What we gonna rock? Steady, yeah, rock. Hey. Great girlfriends, y'all can feel the excitement because I'm just here with a legend. She's just,
oh my goodness,
number one stunner. Like, Tiffany, I have so many words for you. And I have so much genuine excitement because I am holding in my hand like the grail of books by Tiffany Aliche, Get Good with Money. And I'm so happy we get to have this combo.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember I called you before it came out and I was like all freaked out. And if I was maybe 2 months before, and I was like, hey, no. I was asking because I know you worked on Tony Robbins' money book.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when I first met you, that was like, we met in New York at a function. I think it was Beverly Johnson was there.
Yep, Kamika's function for Boss Network. Yep.
And then I was like, oh, we just started chit-chatting.
Uh-huh.
And you told me oh, yes, I'm working on, and I don't know if his book had just come out or whatever, but you told me, and I was like, oh, that's so awesome. But then since then, we just became friends. I've spoken at Great Girlfriends and
Been the Great Girlfriend of the Year.
yes. And then I told you I was so I was collecting all of this knowledge that I could about how to roll out a book successfully. So I was like, okay. I was calling my friends. I had called Lovey. I called other people who had books, and I said, oh, let me call Sybil. And I was like, okay, Sybil. So, okay, the book is coming out, and you were like, yeah, girl, no, I'm not going to give you nothing else. I was like, wait, what? And you were like, I'm not going to give you nothing else to run yourself ragged because I know you already did all the work. You made all the plans. You said the books is going to do what the book's going to do because you've done the work. And I was like, no, Sybil, for real. You're like, yeah, for real. I couldn't believe, I thought you were just saying it girl, you were like, no. And then you proceeded to tell me, but what I do want is what you're going to do to celebrate. And we just had we probably spoke for a good hour.
Yes.
And I just remember Sybil, you're not going to tell me what to do? She was like, I'm not.
I was
and when it hit the list, one of the first things I thought about when it hit the New York Times bestsellers list was wow, Sybil said the book gonna do what the book gonna do. You already put the work in, and you were right.
You have put Tiffany. Linda. You have put in so much devotion to this message, right? And to the people who help to anchor this message. There are disciples of this message. Do you understand? Discipleship that's every brand, everyone's desire is to have disciples of a message. That's what Jesus has. Disciple. Those are the people that are going to carry the message when you can't carry it. What you have established over the years, I mean, Tiffany, I have watched you. I've been on the lives. I've been in the groups. I'm buying all the products. I see you, and it's not you handing off to other people. You have literally established discipleship, not of Tiffany, but of the message. So when it came time for this book to do what the book was going to do, I was like, you got disciples, boo. You don't need, you need nothing else because the message has been proven time and time again effective through the work that you do. And so this one, the next one, and the next one, and the next one, should you decide to go there, they're going to do what they do because you literally have established, you have given people the torch to carry on their own. And so they made all the transactions for you. Your relationship with people is what has driven the transactions. They want to convert for you because they believe, because you show up so steady and consistent. And that devotion, that's why I was like, girl, that ain't your thing. Your thing is how we gonna celebrate this book. Because you've done that. And in branding, that is the grail of brand. Like when you have disciples, like when you have that discipleship, when people are really committed and devoted And when you down and when you sick and when you tired, they out there just handling Budgetnista messaging and talking and getting the social proof. There's nothing else you need. You could have done that without media. You really because Tiffany, you've been so devoted, and I like, and you don't even see it because you're so busy with your head down. You be like, I'm working, and I know that about you. And when you look up, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like what? Like you don't even look up.
Yeah.
But while you're down, everyone is taking in and consuming all that you're putting out. So that output, you got that strong output, and it is just, this is fruit. Like your harvest is just gonna keep growing. It's gonna keep growing.
Yeah,
like,
thank
I'm telling you, what I'm looking forward to with this book that I'm holding in my hand is when my daughter, who's 9, is in her 20s and in her 30s, and she's flipping it like the Bible with them raggedy pages. Like, I need a fresh copy. I need a new one because the one that she inherited has gotten so worn down because we're using this very practical, evidence-based knowledge to appropriate for our financial wisdom. So like, that's what this kind of book does. You know, it's like the evergreen. This is like the, what's my book? Oh my goodness, Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich.
And I said I specifically was like, I want the 4-hour work week. You know how like that 15 years later, that book by Tim Ferriss is still cooking.
Yes, it is.
You know, and I said that when I was writing it, I said, I didn't want to write like a pandemic financial education. You know, I wanted something that I wanted to leave a legacy that, especially when women, especially Black women, when they were like, what do I do? Yeah. Like for real, you know, because people talking like, oh, get your money together. No, sis, specifically, what do I do? Like, it's like when you ask your mother for her recipe, you know, for whatever. And she's talking about picture this and that shit. You're like, we talking about teaspoon, tablespoon. What we talking? You know? And so I wanted that. I wanted this step-by-step guide that started from the very beginning, from mindset and budgeting all the way through estate planning and building your financial team. I wanted that even when I was no longer here, you had that guide, even if I wasn't here. And so I kept that intention. I was talking to a friend of mine who's writing her book now. And she said, how should I start? I said, with intention. You want to get clear, like, you know, and there's no wrong or right. Just what is the intention for this thing that you're writing? Yeah. And for me was to leave that legacy behind, to your point, where it's so evergreen and so useful that your daughter is now like, okay, when she's in college, this is my step-by-step guide. Of course, there's revisions and tweaks, but ultimately this is the step-by-step guide that I'm needing. So I just feel so proud that like, I did it, you know?
You did it, doggone it, girl. You did it good, because anyone, you know what's so interesting, Tiffany, as I comb through there, you can start at any point of your financial journey in this book. Yep. And you can locate yourself. So it's not just about 101 budgeting. It's about making executive decisions for your estate. It's about, you know, selecting life insurance, where to start with investing, all the things. So if you're looking to really expand, you know, your money portfolio, or start whatever those levels are. And if you get lost, you can return to this book and then find yourself in there. I'm like, okay, I got chapter 4. Do I need to drop and get my noodle? What am I doing?
And that, you know, and that was one of the hardest components, because I wanted it to do so much for so many that I was like, you know, I prayed on that. I was like, okay, I want that. It's almost like I thought to myself, like, it's like watching the stories with your grandma. Yeah. You know, she'd been watching maybe the stories since it's like her soap operas, maybe since they first started. Yeah. So she knows all the back history. She loves it from the beginning. But you, her grandbaby who's homesick from school, you should be able to hop in on that episode and catch up. Yes. Yeah. So I was like, how do I write a book that you could be grandma starting from the beginning, or grandbaby? Like, I'm just jumping into this one chapter. And so that, you know, I wanted it to both build on each other, but also each chapter to stand autonomously separately, you know, so that way you're right. Because for those who don't know, the book is called Get Good with Money, 10 Simple Steps to Becoming Financially Whole. And those steps are budgeting, savings, debt credit, learning to earn, investing, insurance, net worth, your professional financial team, and estate planning. And I wanted that if someone already had budgeting and they wanted to jump to insurance, they didn't feel like I got to read all 8 chapters before I get, no, you can jump straight to insurance. But if someone did read from budgeting all the way to insurance, they feel like, oh, these are building blocks, you know? And so that was really important to me, and not an easy feat, you know? Like I had to really pull out all my lessons as a teacher, because I was a teacher for 10 years. Like, how do you create an environment that no matter where the student is, that the lesson makes sense specifically for them?
Oh, that's so good. I had a pastor that once, he would pray before every service that his message would be delivered with simplicity and understanding. And that idea of simplicity and understanding makes it easy and appropriate. Anyone can appropriate it at any given point in time. And that universal life of this messaging, Tiffany, I just, listen, I assume everybody knows you. I assume everybody knows you're about. I'm like, if you don't know her, you can Google her and get busy studying because the info is out. But this is so good. And Tiffany, I asked a bunch of great girlfriends. I was like, what are the questions? If you've read the book already, what do you have? If you haven't read the book, you're scared to read it, because sometimes people are intimidated just by the word money, right? And so that relationship with that word can get tricky for people. Some of us are like, bring it on. And others are like, what do I do? There's that thing. And then there are people who feel like, they're starting so low that they're not even prepared to budget. They're like they're scratching and surviving, right? They're good times life. So I got some questions, and I know how much you love to help people. Yes. And I know how much this book, I just know. Tiffany's also, she's a financial nurse. She makes sure she injects you. She gonna draw your blood so she can examine you. She does all the things. But I wanted to make sure I ask a few of these, if that's okay with you.
No, of course.
And these are really good questions I thought were interesting. And this first one is from Tiffany V out of Los Angeles. Hey, Tiffany V. Hey, girl. Hey. So Tiffany says, is our relationship with money emotional or transactional? And I thought that was an interesting question.
Our relationship with money is absolutely emotional.
Yeah.
That where your mindset is, so does your money go. Because I can teach you how to budget, how to save, how to invest, all the mechanics of it. But if your mindset is one of lack or abundance, that's what's going to determine whether you grow or whether you shrink. Yeah. Whether you go back to what you know already because of fear, or whether maybe you're overcome by shame because of a mistake that you made in the past. So you can't move forward. So it absolutely is emotional. Now, there are some people who are able to manage their emotions when it comes to particular money components. But even still, that is emotional. Yeah. They have made a concerted effort to say, I know the role that my emotions might play in investing. So I'm going to set it and automate in some ways. But even still, that still is a choice that you have to make, because you acknowledge that is how we operate as human beings. So the start of the book, I really lean into the money mindset or mindset component. And I give you 5 exercises how to reset, your mindset, because it's going to be very difficult to maintain any shifts or changes if your mindset is the same.
That is so, and I can relate to being risk averse early in my investing years. And my, my advisor was like, I'm going to need you to take your emotions out of this. The market is transactional. All those feelings have nothing to do with how you want to compound this money. And I was like, So what I had to do was release myself from that relationship, monitor it, but not be so deep in it that I was, always afraid when there was a loss and not a gain. And it changed so many things for me. But yeah, and you're right, because Tiffany, what I learned from another question that came in was, we inherit so many of the opinions and perspectives around money from our family, or lack of money in our families. And many of us haven't learned how to create our own vision. So this book was so helpful for me to remind myself, and even to teach my children, create their own vision for what they want their money to look like. There may be some habits that Kwaku and I have that they don't need to pick up. I hope they don't live on Amazon like I do. I hope to God. I hope they find another way to route that emotional attachment, right? But, that whole thing, that was a big deal for me. And I love that she asked, is it emotional transactional? Because it's a hybrid of both, right? So Lauren out of Chicago said, how do I pay off my student loan debt and buy a home? How are people doing this? And she put the emoji that's like, what the what?
Well, Lauren, I'm assuming you sound like you might have private student loans, because as it is right now, until the end of September, there's the memorandum where you don't have to pay your federal student loans or the interest, and the interest is not going to accrue, which is good. Also, if you have federal student loans, a lot of people, what they do is they look into programs like deferment or forbearance or sometimes forgiveness, or they buckle down for a few years, and they really just like right now, let's just say you are fortunate in that, even though, we've all been caught up in the panorama, AKA the pandemic, but you have a job in an industry that's really stable. You have not had a loss of income. So you could afford to pay your student loan now, even though the federal government has said for federal student loans, you don't have to, because there's no interest right now. You could double down and put extra towards your student loans, because now all that money is actually going directly to the principal.
Yeah.
So normally when you make a payment, let's just say you make $100 payment and $80 goes to the principal, what you actually owe, and $20 goes to the interest, Now all 100 will go to that principal. So now is actually a great time for people who are in a solid financial position to attack their federal student loans more now than ever, because all of your money counts now. Now, if you have private student loans, you might want to consider basically refinancing them. There are companies like SoFi, for example, where if your credit score is decent, I would say they're usually looking for like 680, 700 or better. Then you can refinance your private student loans if the interest rate is prohibitive, meaning your interest rate is, 15, 20%. It depends what your private student loans are. You can refinance at a lower interest rate, so more of your money actually hits your principal. And so for those who are doing it, sometimes people will be doing stuff and barely keeping head above water.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So I know I used to think that too. I remember when I first graduated college, this is when social media had just started to come out, after I graduated college. And I would see all my friends who I knew. I said, don't sis work at the supermarket? Yeah. You just graduated, you still trying to look for your job.
Right.
And she was like, on vacation, or my boy. I'm like, wait, I know my boy. Because I know he home with his mom. Because, we 19, 20. And he's like, in Florida every weekend. And I thought I was doing something wrong. But it's just that some people are honestly just overextending themselves. Yeah. That's what you're seeing. Yeah. That it's not that they're doing so that they're really successful at what they're doing. They've just decided that they want a house so badly that they're willing to overextend themselves to almost have two mortgages, their student loan and their mortgage. So I would not want that for you. I'm not saying you have to be totally student loan debt free, but you want to get a handle on getting the what the monthly amount is costing you to an amount where you can easily handle a mortgage. So I would just wait until I got to that space.
Oh, that's really good. That waiting part, that's not bad, Lauren, to wait. Timing is everything, right?
Yes. Because here's the thing. Let's just say you don't wait. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to max out myself. And then here comes like literally every, I would say 8 to 12 to 15 years, a recession comes. And then all of a sudden, let's just say you're in a dual person household. One of y'all lose your job. And now you realize like, wow, this is why people say to get some of that debt down before, acquiring like something that's going to be really expensive, like a mortgage, because now we don't have enough to cover that, and so you want to position yourself that should something happen, that you would still be able to pay your financial obligations. And sometimes, as Sybil said, it's that wait, but it's worth it. You could also learn to earn more. Like you can hustle on the side. You can learn to invest in a way that investment, the money you make from your investments, that you then pour into paying down some of your debt. So there are ways to expedite paying off your student loan debt, but I wouldn't want to have $100,000 student loan debt and then try to go for a house at the same time, because unless you're making enough money to easily cover both.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. So that brings me to this next question that's also out of Chicago. This one is from Phyllis. And Phyllis wants to know, is it reasonable of me to rent my current apartment, but still purchase a property for the sake of, what did she say? Oh, I guess she means for the sake of expanding her portfolio.
A lot of people do this. Meaning they're like, my apartment is cute. I want to live here and I want to pay I don't mind paying rent here, but I'm going to buy property. It's just an investment.
Yeah.
So absolutely, Phyllis, you might buy a multifamily house, not live in either side, and let your tenants pay your mortgage plus some. Yeah, there's nothing, honestly, if I was not married, I tell my husband this all the time. I said, I'll be living I'd be the most fab auntie. Okay. Like that rich auntie that was like, girl, I just came from Paris. What you want? You want a silk scarf, niece? Got you. So, and I probably wouldn't own I wouldn't live in a home. It's just too big for me. Yeah. I would have some fabulous apartment, but I would own property.
Right.
And then like I probably would maybe I would have a property manager. But yeah, honestly, because I would want the amenities that like I'm not shoveling snow. That my husband takes care of that. Now I'm like, see, that's why you here, bro. Right. But if it wasn't for that, it would be somebody at the apartment that's shoveling the snow,
I know that's
so
right.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm.
That's good. So good, Phyllis. Okay. All right. This one is from Ashley out of New Jersey. I'm risk averse, but want to grow my money. Where should I start? Ashley.
Yes, that's all right, Ashley. Honestly, Ashley, so if we're talking retirement account, I would look into something called a target date fund. And a target date fund is just a mutual fund. So a mutual fund is a basket of investments. So instead of being like, do I pick one stock, this stock? No. You're buying a basket. So you don't have to pick individual investments. And a target date fund, what makes it so special is that you can decide on the year. Like typically people will decide on the year that they're going to retire or as close to it as they can get in their fund. And you just put your money in every month directly from your paycheck. And what happens is the closer you get to that date, the more conservative your investments become. Mm-hmm. So it's called rebalancing. So if you're 20, 30 years out from retirement, or whatever that target date is, then it's going to be more risky because the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Your target date fund wants you to potentially get more reward back. So it takes bigger risk because it knows, Ashley, you got 20 years to recover.
Yeah.
But if you're retiring in 5 years, and that's what your target date fund is 5 years from now, then it's going to be way more conservative because it's like Ashley's going to be getting her money any day now. So let's not have her investments in things where she can potentially lose a lot of money, even though she can potentially gain a lot of money. So target date fund, if you are talking retirement, and you could just do like a regular mutual fund if you are not talking retirement. So a mutual fund is similar to a target date fund, except it doesn't have that date. You put your money into a mutual fund every single month. And you can decide what kind of mutual fund you're looking at. You can decide the mutual fund, you can decide what type of industry you want to invest in, and they will pick the stocks and investments for you. So that's what I would suggest if you're just super risk adverse, because what that means is just that you get to have a diversified portfolio, but one lump sum payment, and the stocks and things are picked for you.
That is so good. I actually need to write that down, that target date fund. Hold on, let me lock that in.
It's in the book, girl. Get your money. I want to say chapter 7.
Okay, target date fund that's a move. Okay, I love that. Okay, this one is cute. Rita from New Mexico says, I'm pandemic broke. How do I create a relief plan? And Rita, I want you to know you're not alone. And I was telling Tiffany prior to our recording that I feel like the timing on this book was just, it was so essential for people who are pandemic broke and restarting. So this is the perfect moment to ask that question to the perfect person. All right, what you got, Tiffany?
So if you are pandemic broke, and let's just say you don't have enough to pay bills. One of the things I address that's different in Get Good with Money than other books is that I address what I call, what if you broke? Because most books assume that you have a little something. Sometimes you don't.
Right.
I've been broke where it was like, I don't even have change in my purse, let alone a retirement account, save it. There's no money.
Right.
So I wish somebody would have told me something that I call the health and safety budget. Mm-hmm. That's when you look at your expenses and say, okay, which expenses do I have where I have to maintain my health? Which expenses do I have that help me maintain my safety? Yeah. Everybody else is going to have to wait. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make a list of everybody who I pay regularly. And I'm going to identify the health and safety budget. I'm assuming if you're really struggling, you might be on unemployment, and then I'm going to say, hey, other folks, I don't have it right now. I'm going to call and let them know, ask if there's a hardship program. And many of them will, because the pandemic is something that is worldwide. Some will not. And that's okay if they don't. But you can still just let them know, well, you're not going to get it this month.
Yeah.
And that, at first, sometimes some of them play hardball, and they're pretty tough, and they're like, no, you have to pay. And they might even they might even start calling you incessantly. This is when you can whip out a cease and desist letter. I had to do this myself when I couldn't afford to pay my mortgage during the Great Recession 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And my mortgage company was calling me every day and threatening me. And so I called my friend, Michaela, and I was like, girl, what do I do? She's an attorney. And she's like, girl, Google cease and desist letter. I was like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. I put it in the book, the letter that I used.
Yeah.
And then she said, go fax it though. But she said, because it takes a little while for them to receive it if you mail it. So she said, go ahead and fax it. So I did. And I put in the cease and desist letter, like, these are the numbers I no longer call, but you can contact me this way via email and via letter.
Yeah.
Them to contact you. And so the phone call stopped. And then when I was ready to get back on or to pay, then I just called to reactivate, like, what does that payment plan look like? So that's what I would say, that if you are truly struggling, and then also too, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are resources. Your city might have food resources. There might be rent resources that you're not aware of. Reach out to City Hall and see, like, are there resources that I can qualify for? Because especially during pandemic, they're especially sensitive that people need more help now than ever. So health and safety budget. Mm-hmm. Let your creditors know, the ones you can't pay right now, but that you will, and ask for help. Don't a closed mouth does not get fed.
That's so, girl, you better say that 10 times over. Oh, that's on page 21. That's going to be in volume 2. But no, seriously, I remember when Kwaku and I had gotten down to a quarter. It was like year 1 of marriage, and we weren't budgeting at all. We were just kind of floating in love, right? And we looked up and we were like, a quarter, and we laughed about it because we were like, how did we get here? Thank God we had, we didn't even realize we were month to month, but we only had a quarter to last us for the next few months. Closed mouth don't get fed. We had to say out loud that we needed help, and not just like out in the air. We had to say it to friends and family that love us, that would never want to see us suffer. Yep. That won't, maybe they might shame us for a second, but we knew we wouldn't be down for long. And the other thing that, Tiffany, I had to not worry about was, okay, I want to pay my bills on time. Yes. But I cannot. Yes. And we need to eat. So what we couldn't concern ourselves with was credit score at the time. Unfortunately. Yes. We have to prioritize.
Credit is one of the things I tell people, it's the easiest thing to fix. Like, of all the 10 steps to financial wholeness, credit is a bunch of tips and tricks. Yeah. That's it. So like my credit score, when I couldn't afford my mortgage anymore, and I was like, look, I don't have it. And Chase Bank was like, well, we want it. And I was like, well, here's the cease and desist, because you ain't gonna call me every day. Right. My credit, they done took my credit score. I was an 802. They dragged it down to a 547. Yeah. And I was like, well, so be it, while I was back in my middle school bed at home, because that's all I could do at that moment. Yes. Sis is back in the 800s. You'll be all right. Yeah. That credit, credit, it's not that it's nothing, but credit is something that can be rebounded and regained. And in the moment in time, your health and safety, nothing's more important than that, so everybody else can wait. Yeah, I know that prioritization helped to lift some of the hurt and the pain out of my mind. And it helped me make a clear plan. Like, it helped us to really plan better, because it was less things that were pressuring us down. So to Rita's, that was Rita's point, but I want to go back to, that wasn't Ashley. Lauren, who talked about buying a home, and a little bit of this credit convo we're talking about. Beverly says, my credit score is a 650, but I'd like to buy a home. Is that possible? Beverly, it is possible, but not advisable.
Oh, that's good.
Because if you somehow convince a lender to lend you money for a mortgage at 650, the price you're going to have to pay to borrow that money is going to be tremendous. And that price is called your interest rate. The better your credit score, the better the interest rate. So your interest rate is how much you have, what percentage you have to pay of the money that you owe. So let's just say you borrow $100 and your interest rate is 10%. That means you're going to be paying back, we're just doing simple math here, $110. Now, if you've got good credit, then your interest rate could be as low as $2. So I'm buying a house for $100. At the end, I'm paying $102. If your credit is poor, it might be $25, let's just say. So you're like, you see the difference between paying $102 and $125? Now imagine that at $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for a house, and what that's going to add up to be. So what I tell people is wait until you get what's called the beginning of a perfect credit score. A 740 is the beginning of a perfect credit score. You don't have to have an 800. Your lender will typically ask, do you at least have a 740? 740 means, whatever I'm going to get that 800 person, that 850 person, I'm going to give to you at 740. And so that's what you should work towards. So I show you step by step how to be your own credit counselor in the credit chapter.
Yeah.
I actually reached out to a friend of mine who is a credit counselor to help coach you through that chapter. So yeah, you're capable of doing it by yourself. And I would, even if you could, I would not. I would wait till I have my 740. So, I can pay less money on a house that's going to be very expensive.
Oh, that's really, really good. Get your whole life, Beverly. Get your whole life. And Beverly's out of Texas. Shout out to Texas. Monica says, I'm 55. Monica is, okay, that's North Carolina. Is out of North Carolina. I'm 55 and starting over. What should my financial goals be at my age? Ooh, that's good. Because that age, that makes a big difference in, the consideration.
Yes. So Monica, at 55, I would probably concern myself most with what is retirement going to look like? Is it going to happen at 65, the traditional retirement age? Am I going to have to wait and push it back to 70? And also too, what does the next stage look like? Like, where am I going to live? Do I have long-term health insurance? So I'd be leaning at 55, I'd be leaning heavily into retirement. I'd be leaning heavily into long-term health care. Like, what does my insurance look like for myself? And also too, the great thing is the internet has made it that so many of us can make incomes, in non-traditional ways. Yeah. So if you don't feel like you have enough money set aside, at 55, they allow you to put anything above 50, you can put additional funds in retirement accounts because they call it catch-up contributions, because they know some people have waited a little longer and they're like, so I want to say that right now, if you were going to put money in a Roth IRA, which is a retirement account where you put the income that's already been taxed into this retirement account, and then when you pull it out, you don't have to pay money on what's taxed.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay money on what you pull out. So a 401k, for example, you put your money in pre-tax.
Yeah.
But then when you pull it out later, you get no tax on the front end, but tax on the back end with a 401k or a traditional IRA. Yeah. A Roth IRA, you get taxed on the front end, but no tax on the back end. So I believe right now a Roth, I want to say it's $6,000, I believe. And then maybe like say $7,000 for catch-up contributions, meaning that like you could put in more every year because you're over the age of 50 to help you catch up. So I would be leaning into like helping myself catch up and don't do it alone. Right. I would ask myself, like, typically, if you're going to work with a financial advisor, then, you should have about $250,000 worth of assets to invest, with the help of that advisor. But you don't have to, if you're just going to be asked. My sister asked me the other day, she just has some questions to ask. You can find a financial advisor and on the low end, $150 for an hour to just say, okay, what are the things, if you're willing to do all the work yourself, I just want to talk through the plan with you. You might say, okay, I'm going to set aside $150 to $300 to work through a plan with someone, but I will enact the plan myself. So I would not go it alone either. So that's what I would suggest.
That's so good. Oh my goodness. I'm curious too what her starting over looks like. Like so many of people I know have gone through divorce, pandemic divorce, and splitting of assets, and just really having to regroup. And then you've got kids going to college and having to, child. I mean, I have a while, but not long before I'm. So I'm looking down that road already. This last one came from Tiffany, who's your namesake, and she is, I don't know what state this is. Maybe it must be Minnesota. She said, do you have a finance app? Now, Tiffany,
people have asked me, I know, I'm like, you got app money? No, I don't have a finance app, but it doesn't mean that there won't be one in the future. There are so many really good apps out there that if I was going to do one, I don't want to do a mirror image of someone else's, app. So yes, if I have a few ideas of, what I'm thinking about, and I'm doing some testing as a website first. And then if it does well, then yes, there will be an app version of some of the things that we're testing.
That's good. But I'm going to tell you, Tiffany, I know there's some great ones out there, but I find myself using 3 easily. That could be one if done effectively to help me get good with all things money. I find myself surfing between. I haven't found a house for like
all the apps.
My financial home. Like I haven't found the place that houses it all. And it could be I haven't linked all the accounts or something. I don't know, but I still feel like that one is missing. So listen, I'm with Tiffany on that one. So this is from Denise. This is going to be our last question, great girlfriends, because y'all sent a good trillion and the book gives all of this, but we got some feature questions. Denise wants to know, what amount of money should I have in my savings account before I start investing?
This is a great question, Denise. So I believe that savings serves 2 functions. One, the first function is emergencies. It's your first line of defense.
Yeah.
Think about it as you put the lock on the door at the bottom, right? And so that way, if an intruder tries to come in or financial hardship tries to come in, you got the first lock, and so you want to have that because sometimes that's more than enough, and so you want, at minimum, you're looking at 3 months worth of how much your expenses cost you a year, right? So let's just say your life costs you, I don't know, $1,000 a month. So you're wanting $3,000 at minimum. And then you ask yourself, okay, based upon the industry that I'm in, how quickly can I replenish my income? Should I lose it? So for my mother, before she retired, she was a nurse. 3 months was plenty for her because nurses back then and now are in high demand. Literally the U.S. goes to Africa and Jamaica to recruit women because they can't find enough nurses.
Wow.
So I remember being a kid, when I think I was in high school and her hospital closed. And that phone, it was like the hotline. She must have had 30 messages a day from different hospitals. Like, oh, girl, heard your hospital closed, girl. But you could come on over here. Different hospitals were just begging. So I remember thinking, I guess we're not worried. She's like, oh, girl, no, they always need nurses. I can go anywhere I want. I was like, wow. So 3 months because of her industry, plenty. My sister, Carol, an engineer. It took her almost a year to find her first job because 1, being a woman, 2, being a sister. And 3, engineering, it took some time. So she might say, you know what, I need 6 months to a year's worth of saving. So that's not, because 3 months is not going to be enough. I likely would not find a job in 3 months. So that's how you know. It's Denise, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you know, Denise, at least 3 months. And then based upon your industry and how quickly you think you could rebound after a job reduction or loss, that's what you want to have. Then anything other than that, anything extra other than that, the second component for savings is savings for goals. So one of your goals obviously is to invest. And so that's why I don't believe in over saving, over sacrificing. You have your 3 months if you're a nurse, maybe your 6 months if you're an engineer or whatever. And then anything above that, unless you're saving specifically, like, I'm saving for a home or a car, anything above that really should be invested so it can grow. And so that's what I would tell you. You don't want to oversave, but you don't want to undersave because people think my money's not making no money. It's not meant to in your emergency savings.
That's right.
It's your safety net.
Yeah.
If something would have happened, so you don't want to put your safety net to work. Well, dang, the safety net's not making no money. I'm gonna rent it out, and then you fall, and you're like, oh, that's why it's supposed to be here.
Right.
No, your safety net is not there for you. It's not your Airbnb. Like, it needs to be in place. You're not there to rent out to other people. It needs to be in place should you fall. Yeah. And then that excess money should be invested or put towards saving for some other goal.
That's so good. Tiffany. They want to keep you all day. I know they do. And I do too, because, I just love it. I can't say enough how blessed I am. And great girlfriends, you'll be blessed by this book. It's transformative. It is what will be like your financial Bible. It will give you the steps, and it gives you all the scenarios. And again, you go into life insurance, which is a whole other body of work that everybody needs to be reading tonight. That's like required. That's required reading, because the end comes, whether we want to face it or not. And
I think I wrote in there specifically, I said, unless you're one of the rare, unless you're the first human being to never pass away, then, you're going to need some life insurance, sis. I know it's not easy to hear. I said, but it's not, but most of us are underinsured.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to make sure, like, the first half of the book is really like the fundamentals. Yeah. Like, the budget, the savings, the debt, the credit, learning to earn. The second half is really like 0.20, like the investing, the life insurance. That's when you're like, oh, this is the big girl part of the book right here. Okay, estate planning.
It was the really full zone.
Yes. And there's nothing, depending on where you are, you're like, okay, this is where I need to rock out, because there are things like, even like so one of the things that, I don't believe in financial gurus. I always say I'm your financial girlfriend, literally.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yes. And so I reached out to some of my financial girlfriends that's what they specialize in. Like my attorney, Tony, she's a sister. She's awesome. Has her law degree from Georgetown, and has a master's in law. And I said, for estate, and she's an estate planning attorney. I was like, sis, I'm not an attorney. I need you to walk me through what we need to do. Okay, we need to do this. Okay, but how about this? And so I served as you to like vet out and to really work through the steps of what you need to do to have a good estate plan. And then I wrote it, like, got it now. And then I was like, Tony, now I wrote it. I need you to read it. She was like, girl, I wish I had this when I was in law school. This is so comprehensive. It explains exactly what it takes. And so I'm just proud of those parts of the book, like insurance. I'm not an insurance agent. Yeah. And so I wasn't going to pretend like I was one. So I pulled out like the agent that I used for myself and my family, because I knew this is who I could trust, and was like, okay, walk me through the steps. And so you will find, and I call them my Budgetnista boosters. I give them their due in the book, because like, what I love is, you're going to get this, they almost all of them are brown. I was like, no matter who read this book, you getting this brown genius up in here.
It's coded, it's dripped in it.
Yes. And so I'm just really proud of what the book has done and what it will continue to do. And y'all go ahead and get it's a New York Times bestseller, 5 weeks now.
What?
I know. It's in its 5th week. Isn't that crazy? I mean, in its 5th week.
Wall Street Journal.
Yes, Wall Street, number 1 Wall Street Journal.
Come on, somebody.
Bestseller. I know. USA Today, it literally made every list when it came out. Sybil, honestly, it's just when you're in alignment and you are doing what your assignment is, then, not that the doors are easy, but they're not locked.
I'll just say locked. That. I love that. The doors are not easy, but they're not locked. Okay, this is my last question, Tiffany. What's your next financial move or goal or ambition?
For me, I think I'm toying around with maybe having a show. Because I've gotten a lot of production companies that have reached out to me, so we'll see. I'm still working on my children. Like I wrote a children's book, Happy Birthday, Molly Moore. So working on the second one. It teaches financial education to the babies.
Yes.
And then too, honestly, something I was thinking, like I was driving through some multi-million-dollar neighborhoods last weekend, and I said, well, why not me? And I said, I want one of these homes, but I don't want a mortgage.
Yeah.
And so like, that's probably like my next big financial personal move. And it's just like, I love our house now. It's mortgage free. I would likely rent this out for additional income. But I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to live on one of these big old houses on the hill. It's going to happen.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. Can I come over when you do? I'll mow the lawn. I ain't mowing no lawn.
I know. Of course you can come over, Sybil.
But I'll come over. I'll bring something fancy to drink to celebrate because I'm always here to celebrate. Oh my goodness.
Can I share with the ladies where they can go ahead and get good with money?
Oh, girl, yes. Well, before you do that, I was going to tell them I'm giving away 5 copies. So we're giving away probably about 10 copies now through our Great Girlfriend Facebook community, but I'm giving away 5 more. So you have to make sure you email us welcome@thegreatgirlfriends.com. If you're not one of the first to get those free copies, you need to be buying at least 3 copies, one for yourself, one for your great girlfriend, and one for your, I say, coworker, someone that you love who you want to extend that to. And where can they buy it, Tiffany?
You can just, the name of the book, getgoodwithmoney.com. You know, that's that good marketing.
Yeah. Straight to the point, getgoodwithmoney.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and get you that book and get your life. Yes.
I love it, Tiffany. I'm celebrating you always and forever. I'm so happy for you. I'm just so happy for you. I'm happy for all of us because we get to be a part of your growth and we get to be a part of your wisdom story and your wealth web. And I'm happy to come to the house on the hill.
Yes, thank you.
The apartment on the corner, wherever it is, to just make sure people understand how powerful you are and just a true blessing. You really are. You're
No,
good.
thank you. I appreciate that.
You are. All right, great girlfriends. You know where to get the book. You know where to support Tiffany. Oh, make sure they follow you on, they're probably already following you, but let's not assume it. Let's make sure they're following. Go ahead and drop all of that.
I'm the Budgetnista on all the socials, on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, even TikTok, the Budgetnista.
Are you on TikTok?
Girl, I got one little, Alyssa, my 14-year-old stepdaughter, she done show me how to do one. I got one little TikTok up there, but I'm on there. I'm on there.
I have one little random video that I don't even know how to get back in. And so I was like, that's why I'm out. But kudos to you for having your one video. I'm here for
Yes, thank you.
I love you, Tiffany.
Oh, I love you back, Sybil. Thank you.
Hearts.
Thank you.
Great girlfriends, did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast, into the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group, The Great Girlfriends. You follow us on Instagram @The Great Girlfriends and on Twitter @the_greatGFS. Last but not least, we'd like to thank my amazing husband, Kwaku, Sam and Dilly, and all of you for being a part of the global community that makes us so strong. Please remember to share with your friends. Keep listening and keep being a great girlfriend. I'm Sybil Amuti, and I'm out. Peace.